we try to communicate this internally, and then also, just sort of like I've always tried to express this idea that the stock market is kind of where investors go to get liquidity, right? Or buy assets. But the stock market beyond that actually has very little tangible value for investors who are looking for information about businesses. That's happening out in the world. And you can get some of it through reading, 10Ks and 10Qs and, reading all the transcripts and getting all the alternative data that exists that, some of these providers want to sell to you. But ultimately, one of the best ways to really understand sort of the industrial dynamics is just to talk to customers and to listen to customers and listen to what they're saying. And so I think that's kind of where, like I sort of alluded to before, like we spend a lot of our time just thinking about businesses through the perspective of customers, which is what are they saying? What are they doing? They're exchanging their time, their hard earned capital for some sort of product or service. And what we're really attracted to, and I think where, our eyes really turn is like, if there's suddenly something where people are waiting lined up around the block, if there's something, either literally or philosophically or sort of metaphorically, because that is going to be interesting to us. Like if we, not necessarily, a company that's cutting, 8,000 jobs and is going to, boost their EPS next quarter. We're looking for a company that is typically led by, the founders who have a very strong perspective on what the product or service should be. And I think also we're just sort of looking for companies that are willing to experiment and try new things and take bets, right? Take calculated risks to see, we have X amount of cash in the bank and we can, for a relatively small amount of our capital, create a product or service. And if it's successful, we can add capital to it and grow it and expand it. And that's ultimately, innovation is just like a series of trying new things and failing most of the time. But, occasionally you have a couple of successful ones and then you just keep adding capital to the successful ones. So we look for companies that I think are willing to try something new, as cliche or as hackneyed as that sound. If I just think about our portfolio, it's like companies that typically recognize, hey, there's a better way to do this, right? There's a better value. And that's like really what Clayton Christensen talks about in The Innovator's Dilemma, which is like, you have these incumbents, and then suddenly a new technology comes on the scene that offers like a better, cheaper, more efficient way of doing something. And the old companies are typically not able to transition their business models very quickly, but consumers might change their preferences overnight. And that's a lot of like the tension that exists in disruption is, there's a reason why Blockbuster couldn't compete with Netflix. There's a reason why, Barnes and Noble couldn't really compete with Amazon. It's just that there's something in these organizations' DNA. The way that it expresses themselves is the incumbents tend to focus on preserving cash flows, playing sort of protect and defend the old guard, whereas the younger upstarts, the innovators, they have to come up with a better value proposition. And oftentimes it's very expensive. These are capitally intensive, sort of endeavors. But if they're successful, they can be totally transformative. And so I think some of our core investment themes are aligned with this of identifying management teams, entrepreneurs, companies that are focused on finding sort of a better value proposition for customers and that come up with something that is like super compelling. And we don't care as much like if it's super profitable in the short term. We just want to know that down the road, there's going to be huge amounts of profits. They just need to build, and keep satisfying the customer demand. So I think you see that a lot, like that mentality more probably in venture capital and probably some of the investment communities that you spend most of your time in on sort of the private and VC side. But I think we apply some of those principles in public markets, maybe at a little bit of a later stage, obviously like a higher market cap. But yeah, we're just like relentlessly focused on, product and customer, and
Yeah.
everything else flows from there.